So we can call to order at 6:02 and public comment. Oh, John was coming. Fantastic. Does anyone have a public comment that's not about something on the agenda? I'm guessing not. Okay. Any additional items to the agenda? Does anyone want to add anything? Okay, we won't add anything. Unless we do it later, I guess. Review and approve minutes. Do we have anyone who wants to make a motion about the July 11th minutes? Did those go out? I don't recall. It was so long ago.
Yep, I did. I sent them out.
Perfect. Okay. Do people like those minutes?
I have a motion to approve them.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor of approving the minutes from July 11th? Anyone want to approve that? Yay. Okay, we'll approve the minutes. We'll approve the minutes from July 11th. That sounds great. And then and we have some, we'll talk about minutes again later. There's some bookkeeping items. And then correspondence, I guess we had a few pieces of mail that Kristen Underwood will take care of. New business, I didn't have any new business this month, so we can go back to old business. Which are actually labeled wrong on there. That's okay. Roman numerals are hard. And then we're going to do Conservation Commission membership. So we have a vacancy for one new member now. But we used to have a vacancy for two, but we found Roger. So that's amazing. So Roger, you're official now. Is that correct?
Yay, it's true. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm unwell and I will be off camera, so you don't have to see how bad it is.
Oh no, well, it's rough out there. Yeah,
it is.
Welcome, Roger.
Thank you.
How did the select board go? Do you go meet them?
No, it was a Zoom as well. I guess as awkward as you would expect, and then immediate approval. It was fine.
Okay, sounds good. They didn't do anything too strange or long. That's good.
No, not at all. They called me, I believe, fresh meat and passed me along.
All right. That's why people get scared off, and never join once they meet the select board. You made it the trial by fire there. Okay, great. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you can join us. And we'll try to and you came to the awkward June Zoom meeting, right? No, yes. July Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever was the last full meeting before this one, right?
Right. So we'll try to loop you in as things come up on the agenda, or if you don't know what's happening or where a park is or what we're talking about, please jump in and ask questions because it's good to refresh everyone.
Cool. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. And I added you to the website as well, so that we have that all taken care of. And there's still one vacancy. So if anyone knows of anyone that wants to join or might be strong armed into joining, we still have one spot. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the Wildlife Corridor Project. Professor Mikhailo is here from Middlebury College. And so we just want to, it's for Roger and I guess most of Roger. This is a long, big project we've been working with Alexis, and she has been working with her students on this project with us. And in spring, we had sort of a culmination of the work of several students, and then was it 5 seniors that did a big project, capstone project for their course. And so they made all these documents for us, and they promised they'd give it to us very soon. And it is now September, and she is here to show us the documents. So that's what you get working with students. So we're always just flexible with that. And we wanted to talk to her about what those documents look like, and then sort of next steps, like what should the project do next, basically, or should it do anything? Are we done? Like that's up for this debate. So okay, that's the basic gist. Alexis, would you like to? I'll see if you can. I'll make sure you can share your screen.
Thanks. Yeah. So we, I think, started with one student who was just gathering knowledge one semester. And then another student did some camera trapping in some of the public parks. And then that resulted in several students in my community engaged practicum spending a whole semester working on habitat mapping for Bristol. So they ended up honestly doing a ton of stuff. They did a lot of mapping, a lot of camera trapping. They used QGIS to come up with a series of maps. They also conducted a survey through Qualtrics about people's opinions on habitat conservation and housing in the area. They developed a pamphlet for new homeowners, and they also got a bunch of really fun pictures along the way. So let me see how the best way to do this. So I think I have sent Carolyn and Alex a folder since they were the main kind of partners for the class. The main thing is a very large report document, and it's pretty well laid out, but they basically summarize the gist of why this type of work needs to be done in terms of understanding why habitat connectivity is important, why it should be recognized when conducting any type of planning. They lay out all of their methods. I had them try and do a lot of visuals wherever possible, so that way the report isn't just a ton of text, but is pretty engaging. Hopefully you'll enjoy reading it. And so they talk about all the different things they've created and why they chose to do what they did. So they talk through all of the different methodologies. So their QGIS processes, how they went about camera trapping, and then they have a series of maps. So these maps were created with all the feedback in mind in terms of my student who went around and asked, what do y'all want at the commission? And these continuing conversations of what would be most useful. So again, there's a series of maps that highlight a lot of the corridors that were studied. So here's the key areas that the students were really focusing on. They have information about the camera sites, why they chose those sites, and kind of the specifics of how they talked to folks about that and how received permission for that. Then they have a map showing the location of their cameras. In particular,
Alexis, Roger's
yeah.
asking if we can post a link to this document.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if
Google folder, but wasn't there a concern about like some like specifics about locations? Alex, could you speak to that? Is there something you want changed before we like let this out more?
Yeah, so that was a question Alexis had asked, whether or not she felt like we ought to publicize the exact locations of the camera traps. And my sort of take on that, interested to hear you guys' input, but was these sort of general locations are obviously, like that's the whole point, is having the having the corridors and the some of which are fairly small locations on the map. But I think like leaving the actual exact locations of the traps off is a good thing, but just to avoid drawing more attention to those spots, some of which are my choice hunting spots. Not to not that it's all about that, but the what we've got here, like these dots, I don't think are specific enough to be problematic, and I personally would feel totally fine with those being on the being out there in the world.
Does that mean that it would be okay if we copied this link to this document for everyone right now? Would that be okay if we put that on?
Yeah,
I think so. What do you think, Alexis?
Yeah, because they have a spreadsheet with the exact coordinates, and I didn't include that in the folder specifically at this time because I wasn't sure what y'all wanted to do about that.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, a couple of them, like the Bristol Pond spot, for particularly, is like a very tight little alleyway that's kind of sensitive, and I don't think we want to like drive a bunch of people to that. But so like the coordinates, leaving that off, I think would be good. But like what you've got here, like that's general enough. What we're looking at on the screen now, I don't think that would be problematic.
Great.
So yeah, I'm trying to get this signed in, and there's too many screens. Could someone easily drop that link for Roger?
I can do that here.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks. I have too
many. I think it should be
open.
a view only. Yeah, so I tried to kind of remove identifying information where possible, and we could even remove this like permission specific column too. So I guess it's a decision in general of like, what is a report that the BCC wants versus how much do you want to have like very fully public. So another thing too is all the GIS files in here. They're in QGIS format. So technically if someone downloaded them, they would have the exact coordinates, but that would be like a fair amount of effort.
Sure.
Person. Yeah,
Also,
so they-
like, it's one thing if like we have them versus like what we would actually bother putting like a report or something that would go out for public versus like what
Right.
we have, like, I mean, we don't have, I mean, we're just like a bunch of goofy volunteers. We don't have like a central server even. It's just like in people's emails, right? So like,
Yeah. I don't think it's like you said, people would have to go to some effort. I mean, technically, people can all go like get coloring data from the state if they want, but nobody does, and it's not that big a, it's not that big a deal, I don't think. And it is important to have like we got to have enough specificity to make the whole thing make sense. So
yeah, so just things to keep in mind. So they went through and did their camera trapping. They also did a community survey and they summarized it. They also have a full copy of the survey itself as an appendix to this report. And then they created a pamphlet as well. And so they have a series of maps that they've made that show things like land cover, tree cover variation. And so these are all in theory maps that you guys can use as you're looking at particular areas. They made a map using iNaturalist occurrences. So trying to get a sense of how people are engaging with the area and what, people just going out and hiking, hunting, etc. are seeing. And we've also pulled the state identified priority forest blocks for the area too. Then they summarized their camera trapping data. And I included a folder that they made of their favorite pictures. I also, which are great. I also have a folder of all of the pictures, which is a large data file. I don't know if it's necessary if you want all of them. They include like blanks and stuff like that. But we can do that, but they went through and analyzed each image and came up with ways to summarize the data, and I included their data file spreadsheet there as well. And so they have summaries of different species they've seen. I think this was all in the presentation that they shared in May. And then they also include some of the community survey results too. So a few charts about that. And then they have a very large appendix. As I said, all their favorite pictures.
I mean, they got so many good ones,
They got some great ones. And then they have a bunch of different maps, and then of course the full survey and
cool.
the pamphlet. And that's also like a separate thing in their folder for you all. And what I think is nice about this is that there's kind of like a bunch of different products that all work together. Let's see, so this is the full folder that I had sent to Carolyn and Alex. And so I also put a copy of their final presentation too, in case folks were interested. And so you'll see the final mapping resources. These are mostly like files that can be opened up in GIS software specifically. So if someone is analyzing these data, they're welcome to use these are all the raw files that are used to generate maps. So those maps can easily be reproduced.
Cool.
But they also just kind of like blank folders if you're not using GIS. So that's the overlay. And yeah, you'll notice, right, camera and ID points. So in theory, those are the ones that would be specific locations. Yeah, I would say that's the overview of everything. So there's a bunch of maps that encompass land use, that encompass human activities, the camera trapping, focused on those corridors that folks identified as being of interest.
can't wait to dig into that. Looks awesome. Very well put together.
They did a really good job.
Yeah, this is incredible. There's so much here, right? Like, to some level, I want to think about like what the next steps are and like how do we use all of this, right? Because I'm so impressed. They did such a good job. I was just
So I've been kind of mulling over that, like the next steps thing quite a bit lately. And one thing I've kind of been thinking is that it's not really complete until we've got a calendar year. It'll never be complete, but like, because we started trapping like late winter and stopped at the end of the semester, we've got like a very seasonal picture of what goes on out there. For instance, we don't have bears popping off on camera until like, beginning of May. And that's not really an accurate picture of what happens at these particular areas over the course of a year. So it would really be great. I've actually been running some of the cameras that we were using for this were mine, and I left them in the woods all summer. And got some cool data from those locations. The Notch Road and the Hogback spot were by cameras. So we've got more stuff coming in from those, which has been really interesting and will be cool to add to all this. And it would be great if we could get whether through getting some more students who are interested or on our own, carry this on through a full calendar year before we start figuring out what to do with the compiled data, because it's sort of incomplete until we've got that full year's worth of data.
I do have a student this semester who is going to continue doing some camera trap, like community engagement work, especially because he had been working with Ripton, but I could potentially put him on that and maybe have him organize a Wildlife Insights account too, if you wanted to add your summer stuff to the stuff they had in the winter for those
That'd be
same
great.
sites.
Yeah, I wonder how to do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we could potentially do that. He hasn't solidified a project yet, and so I can see if he'd be interested in running at least some of the cameras in those sites, because that's actually not that heavy a load to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can keep the ones up on Notch and Hogback going and just put batteries in them periodically on our own too. Those places are areas that we're messing around in quite a lot, and it's easy to check on them. The one on the Hogback is a cell camera too, so it sends the pictures, so it doesn't really take that much. It's got service up there, and it doesn't take much checking on.
I was thinking about we made this list of what we thought the scope might be of the project in December of 22. And so I thought I might share that if everyone's okay with that, so we can look at like what we had said almost 2 years ago for like our ideas for the project. Let me just get that shared here. And I think I can make it so you can see all the text there. So it starts with compile other maps and previous studies, and ends with collaborating with the planning commission or zoning to think about next steps. And so I thought if we could think about, this was one of our original ideas of what we might do with this project. I thought it was interesting to think about like, where have we gone and where should we go, or what is left to do.
It seems like if it's going to be, like the input on the town plan and so on, figuring out a way to distill this down into a very digestible document for folks that aren't going to take the time to read that entire thing and have the background to fully understand it, that would be a pretty useful thing, I think. And it seems like some of that work has already been done with the pamphlets and so on. We're kind of on the way to that.
I was thinking maybe the last time I really don't know much about how the town plan gets written. As I recall, last time, I think Andrew LaRoe wrote a big chunk of it at the Aspen County Regional Planning Commission. So maybe there could be an opportunity to work with him and see what he would think now that we have this. Just like, okay, we have something. What do you need, or what's next, or how do maybe he's like, that's all I need, or maybe he would say like, oh, now we need to do X, Y, Z. I don't really have a good sense of that process. I don't know if anyone else does that would want to chime in on that.
I wonder if we could get him to stop into a meeting or zoom into a meeting at some point and give us some feedback on that after sending him over to him.
Yeah, it might be good to know what he would think about that, as well as like what his timeline is on something like that. Alexis will be on sabbatical starting, what is it, like this January through the following January, December, right? So, or February through January or something. So since we're looking at like the town plan comes out, I think for 2024 but I think it's during that year. So it might be when she's gone. So it might be like, it'll be too late to have a student if we like don't do a student soon. I guess I could have a student, maybe. I
You
don't
could
have.
have a student.
I could have a student probably, yeah.
Yeah,
For
I
spring,
will
if we-
be existing too. I just won't always be in Middlebury.
That's right. She'll cease to exist for 1 year. It's crazy.
I also want to put the link to the little website they made too. This is what the QR code takes
Oh,
you to.
yeah.
Yeah, I think more could be done with story mapping. We were kind of in the tension between not wanting to show particular like spots. But the student that I have who's doing camera trapping this fall is really, really interested in science communication and like community engagement. So I could even think of him like working to feature people or specific areas that are like, roadsides or whatever might be useful. I think he would be really into that.
But are you saying he would do that in Ripton as opposed to Bristol?
No, he could do a little bit in both towns. I can pull him to Bristol.
If we had a big enough project too, it's not that late. Like we could get a student possibly for this semester still. But if we wanted, but it would be like, we have to go like now. It would be like, we need a project like today to find someone to like jump in,
Can I
'Cause
back
that-
one step and get Andrew LaRoe's title? Why would we share this report with him? I just missed what he does.
Oh, yeah. He works with the Addison County Regional Planning Commission.
Okay. That's good
And I
enough.
think
Yep.
he wrote all the text from I think he rewrote a big chunk of natural resources text for this town plan for Bristol,
Great.
as I recall.
Okay.
Yeah, and he would have been under a contract from the town. Essentially, the updating of the town plan is under the direction of our planning commission, and they would have received a grant to pay for his services to help with that process. So
Okay.
I have him listed right now as he's the emergency management planner, but that definitely wasn't his title then. So I don't know if that's like his current role or who would be in that current role now, or who that would be. Yeah, I don't know who that would be now, but sorry.
I'm wondering if, this is Helen, I know my camera's off. Maybe we should all commit to reading this report as thoroughly as we can in the next month and discussing it in October. And then deciding, all right, now what are the next steps? Because right now,
Yeah.
I've heard the student presentations and watched as the data quickly was scrolled on the screen, but I don't think any of us have sat down and looked in detail at what data are being presented in this report. And then I would also remind us that we got a fair amount of written information from Sophie the tracker and her maps. So I kind of feel if we're going to be figuring out next steps, we have to pull together all the information that's been gathered over the last year or two.
Right, and the students were given that.
Right, but I think we need to look at it and make sure that we
yeah.
know what she was highlighting in addition to what the students are highlighting.
Yeah, Alexis, to what extent did Sophie's work play into the students like setting up their project?
I think they used it directly.
That's what I thought. I thought we gave it to them really early on,
Mhm.
along with like Lauren's
Yeah.
independence lead, right?
Yep, and David, yeah, they had access to everything that had been done so far.
Yeah, I think the theory was that was going to create the foundation for this, is like the next step off of Sophie. But we
Yeah,
can go
right,
back and
but
check
the
that.
first
Yeah,
thing that
we
comes
should
to
go through
mind is the places where camera traps were set up by Alexis students are not places that Sophie was monitoring. They're not places, at least that I wandered around with Sophie and she was mentioning, oh, this is a corridor, this is a corridor, this is a
Mhm.
corridor. And then she
Yeah,
presented us with maps showing where those corridors are. Those are not represented in the camera.
sure.
that-
Totally, I see that.
So
Yeah.
I think they talked specifically about the choices they made for the cameras, and part of it's, you know, who owns the land, and part of it is also like identifying places that, you know, she wasn't as confident about, because if you already know something's a corridor, you might want to check the other places that are kind of like, well, we don't totally have evidence.
Right. I'm
I
just
think-
viewing these two sources of information as complementary. I'm not saying
Yes.
that the
Mhm.
students did anything incorrect. It's just, I don't want to neglect what data Sophie presented to us, so that if we decide to really focus and read everything we can in the next month about reports that we've been given, then in October, we can be pretty thorough in our discussion of what our next steps.
That sounds perfect. Yeah. So let's make sure I can get everyone, sorry. Oh, I'm so glad no one's in this room with me right now.
Oh my
Not
God.
well. I'll get everyone the link to the Google files that Alexis students have as their deliverables. I'll
Great.
also get Sophie's piece, and I'll also make sure we have like Lauren Gentry's independent study and other guy.
David
David's-
Goldsmith.
Yes. I'll make sure we have his thing. We'll make sure we have his thing too. So we can be like, these are like the 4 projects that we have
Great.
all together. I'll make sure I'll combine that in like one big drive or link or whatever. So
And
people
then-
can kind of tear that apart. Yeah.
Send it to us by email. Is that how we'll receive it?
Yeah. I'll send you
Okay.
the link to that. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That'll be great. Yeah. And then we can go over that. And then we should think about like, yeah, read through and think what we want next. And thank you, Kristen, for looking into that. So that's good to know that that is 2028, it sounds like, which is nice for anything formal. So we have a lot of time then to work with the Planning Commission or to talk with Addison County Regional Planning Commission as well. We don't have to worry about the sabbatical issue coming to a head right at that same moment, which is really convenient. So I was told 25, so I'm actually quite pleased to see that that was wrong, because it gives us more time to get this taken care of.
Well, it probably will begin in 2025.
Yeah, right.
It's a kind of a lengthy process, so.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, then, does that sound good? So we'll all plan to kind of have some homework and read those through for October.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Alexis, thank you so much for coming and for giving us all these documents. Like, they're
Yes,
so
thank you,
beautiful,
Alexis.
so
Yeah, thank
organized.
You're amazing.
Fantastic. Thank
The
you.
students are great. And the only thing is, if I'm gonna have a student starting to work, like I already have a student who's enrolled with me to do community engaged camera trapping stuff. So while I can certainly follow up in October, in the meantime, maybe Alex, I'll connect you with the student, because it can't hurt to just keep monitoring the same sites just to have a.
Yeah, if we're gonna get a year's worth of data at those particular spots, it'd be great to get cameras back out on the ones that aren't that we took them down on. What do you have those cameras available?
I have time.
Or okay, sweet. In that case, yeah, I'd love to come and or show the student around the spots that we had taken the cameras down on. And we actually just went and put new batteries in the ones that have been out in the woods. So we've got a few, we've got 4 still out there.
Perfect.
Great.
I will.
It's hard to know where to stop with all this, because there's like 15 more spots that I think of as be really, really critical, but they're kind of infinite. But I think we've got a pretty good, this was a good batch, these places.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I
Alright.
think just like in terms of timeline then, right, so we wouldn't have any specific students that would start, except for the student you already have that might do more camera trapping work, right? Just make sure we're all on the same page then.
Yeah, I
wonder-
could have him doing various tasks too, but
Okay.
just let me know.
I wonder, I hired Bailey part-time, and he's been working with me a little bit, and I wonder if I could Shanghai him into with some camera checking too. He was way into it. I mean, I think he likes wandering around the woods as much as the next guy. And he knows the spots. So I don't know if he knows that student or not, but that may be
They were in the same class.
cool.
So they should. Yeah, and I still have Max who did all the GIS work for this, although he's working on a thesis. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so
might be pretty busy.
we can make it work for sure.
Cool.
Could we hire, because Bailey's still at Middlebury because he's a Feb. Could we hire him with FRAF money for the semester to do some of that?
I don't know if I'm eligible for that because I still have startup.
I could get FRAF though.
Can you get a FRAF?
Yeah, I had a FRAF last year for my stream website. I had 2 students on FRAF.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's do that.
We could think about it if he's interested. You know him better than I do. Do you want to reach out and see if he's interested? And like then it'll cover like insurance, I assume, and like he can get paid instead of just being whatever forced by Alex to do this, right?
I need him mix and mortar on his free time.
Yes, I will figure something out.
See if he's interested, and then we can apply for FRAF money. And if he's not interested in maybe a formal, then he can just be dragged around by Alex if that's what he prefers. Right?
Yeah, I mean, or he could do independent study credit, but I'm honestly a little overwhelmed with students at the moment.
Yeah, totally. I get that.
We'll figure it out. It sounds like we got a plan though.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk more. Yeah, talk to Bailey and then we'll talk more in details if like we want to make something like that work out. I think.
Did you see that Roger posted a comment that it let him know when people are going to go out to do camera stuff because he might be interested?
I'm not seeing these comments.
Well, they just appeared briefly and then they disappeared.
No.
That's a
There should be a chat
If you
at the
click
bottom.
on
You
it-
open up that chat.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Great.
Wow. What do you know?
Helen, you can click on that little chat icon and then you can read all the comments.
Yeah.
Sorry, with so many people, it's easier just to like type it in there. But yeah, I was just gonna say if yes, thank you, Alex.
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So that sounds great. And then Alexis, you'll be in touch with, or Alex, you'll be in touch with Alexis about this other independent studies student that might want to do a little bit of Ripton work and maybe like do a little bit of Bristol stuff. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to make sure we all understand the plan. Okay, sounds great. And then I'll wait to hear from you if Bailey's interested in something. I'm just trying to figure something out. Okay, sounds good. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. Anyone else about wildlife? All right, great. So we'll make a point for our agenda for next month to read everything and then talk about it. Okay. All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much, Alexis, for coming to the meeting. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna, okay, let's do, are we good on that then? Okay, so we can move
Carolyn,
on.
can I ask you one question? Because
Yes.
I've now found the chat and I found the links that Alexis posted. I'm thinking not to put those in the minutes because the minutes are going, they're going to be public.
Yeah, don't put those in the
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. Yep.
Is this video getting posted public? Because like
Yes, but
realistically, you can copy that URL from the
yes, but again, like Alex said, it just takes so many steps, you know?
yeah, fair point.
I don't think there's a ton of viewership on this particular.
Hey, come on.
One time.
It's competing with
someone
Thursday
saw-
night football tonight, and there's no
I know
way.
where people are. They're watching that for sure.
People watch because one time we all debated how we were going to come up with $250 for a long time, and then someone anonymously donated the money to us because they must have seen the video, unless it was one of us. I don't know. So some people do watch it because somehow we did get that anonymous donation. So you never know. You never know who's watching on TV.
Or thank
anyhow.
you if it was one of us.
Anyway, we don't know. We'll never know who it was. Yeah, it was anonymous. So, Helen, did you get the Daily showed up?
I did. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you. And Nancy. Yep.
Nancy, yeah. Well, her name wasn't on there though, so, okay, anyhow, parks updates, C, anyone got a park update?
I do, just
Okay.
Sycamore Park. I continue to go there to admire the pollinator garden. Some of the plants are they're way taller than I am. They're like 8 or 9 feet tall. I call it a feral pollinator garden. It's really wild, but it's full of flowers and therefore full of pollinators, which is really wonderful. I continued to weed it, mostly pulling out burdock and sumac. And I think I would love it if several of us could head out there and cut back the sumac that are on what I'll call the back side of the pollinator garden, just because they shade it so much that a lot of plants are growing out toward the lawn because that's where the sun is. I was about to do it. I have a little sawzall and I was going to start cutting away at sumacs, but I knew that they would start falling into the garden and it'd be great if somebody could sort of direct them and we could drag them away. And I think in a 2-hour period, we could clear out a fair amount of sumac from behind the garden. And it could be done any time of the year. So that's my report on Sycamore.
Nice, yeah, I've noticed that sumac too. Anyone wanna help, cut sumac and drag it around?
I can. And even better if we do it on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday in the morning.
Anybody else?
But any time is fine.
I probably can help, and I have a sawzall depending on when the timing is. If you want
So
to put
just let
out,
me know.
if you want to put out an email, Helen, then I think that might be helpful with
Okay.
some days. I have a follow-up on Sycamore Park as well. I was so curious to see how the pruning of the apple trees did. And one of the trees is doing phenomenally well. I have a feeling that that was the one that probably didn't need as much pruning. And it was loaded with a good number of apples. So the others, a little bit here, a little bit there. I may end up going over there to just harvest some. And if we possibly have another meeting where most, if not all of us can attend under the pavilion, possibly, oh, I don't know, October, might still be some nice weather. Or just, I don't know how I could get them to everybody. But the two larger trees have had some more extensive pruning, and they're also a little bit more shaded. So I didn't see any activity there, but that doesn't surprise me. That might take a few years for those trees to develop the spur branches that end up being the fruiting branches. So nice to see that in year 2, the efforts have been somewhat rewarded in the pruning activity.
Good.
Nice, yeah, that's great. Do you wanna bother with the apples? Should we just tell Meredith they're there if she wants them? Or do you want the apples? We have no official policy on the apples, they just sort of are there.
Well, I'm happy to go, and I mean, we did the work. I'm just trying to figure out a way to share them. There's not a whole lot. And short of that, they'd fall to the ground and be a spot that Alex might want to take a look at with all the deer that would be gathering around that those apple drops. But I know that Meredith, when Helen and I were walking back in the spring, mentioned that, oh, I don't know, 4 years back or so, she had somebody that harvested a whole bunch of apples and dropped off a good basket full to the office. And that's how she was sort of acquainted with the apple tree orchard down there, I think.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, if you want to go pick apples, I don't think anyone will stop you.
If they're there. Somebody,
that's
some,
your make.
some people may have already started, but I'll double back and check in the next week or so.
Does anyone have an update on the garden plants? Remember we bought some plants really quick? I was like, someone has to buy plants now. And then like someone bought plants, like whatever happened with that?
Saley did.
I did.
That's right, Saley did. I was
They're-
like, we
They're
finally
in
heard
Eagle Park.
from the treasurer.
They're in Eagle Park.
Are they planted? Like what happened? I was out of town. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, they're planted. They're in Eagle Park. It was only 3 of them. It's not like it was it wasn't very much money. So
Okay.
but I got 3 of them and they're up in Eagle Park, and baby started crying just as I was watering them. So one of them didn't get watered right away, but I'm sure it's fine. This is a bit of a chaotic planting, but they're in.
The whole thing was chaos. Like, I'm surprised we pulled it off at all, frankly.
But they're in. They're
Okay.
in. Did the whole money thing.
Awesome, thank you.
Mhm.
Has anyone heard, do we have a treasurer for Bristol now or not?
Didn't we? Didn't you?
I
weren't
thought
you
we
in
just got a new
contact
one
with
or
them?
something.
Oh, my understanding is that did not last very long.
Oh
I wasn't
no.
sure. I know.
Wow.
But I wasn't sure if there was a current new treasurer or not. No, it says town clerk and treasurer is Sharon
Wow.
online right now. And the assistant treasurer is Chris Purley. So he's probably, it sounds like he's helping Sharon out with that. So yeah, so I guess we don't have a dedicated treasurer at the moment. Okay, well, at least we have the account numbers now, so it'll make things easier. And when we get a treasurer again, we'll meet with them again and we'll check in on how our accounts are doing. Poor small towns. It's hard to be a small town, you know. Okay, any other park updates?
Yeah,
Memorial. Oh yeah.
Rory and I went up and fished at Memorial a few days ago and was reminded that I think we talked about this ages ago and forgot about it, but the steps have been like railroad ties with rebar driven through them. The railroad ties, a lot of them have rotted out. Just the steps going down to the bridge and the rebar is sticking up, and it's a death trap. And pending your approval, I'm just gonna smack them down into the dirt with a sledgehammer and never speak of them again. I think it'd be kind of a pain to pull
the
out.
metal pieces.
They like drilled the ties and drove them down with rebar, and it's now like it's stuck in very, very firmly in there, but the wood is rotted away around them, so there's just spikes sticking up here and there on your way down the trail. It's pretty gnarly.
Do you think it's possible to extract them, Alex?
I
Or do you
think it's
that
gonna be
they're
a
down
pain.
like two
There's
feet
quite a
or so?
ways in there, and their roots growing around them and so on. They're pretty firmly in. I'd bring a big claw hammer and try to pull them out first, but if I was figuring if they can't be taken out, I would just drive them in there or cut them off. I mean, whatever you guys think is best. We could do any one of those, but I'll do that next time we go up there.
We might just want to let Meredith know
Mhm.
of that plan, just so they're in
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, I would loop rec in.
Should
so
we
that
offer them
they
the
know.
opportunity to do it first, or?
I'm sure they would love it if they had
Sure.
volunteers to help.
Yeah, I think you should just like offer as a volunteer to do that so that you saw the need and you'd like to volunteer to help out, just so the town knows. Because what if you like hit your leg with the sledgehammer, or just what if she had a different plan or vision for the rebar or something? It's just nice to just to loop her in with that before you do it. But I think that's really a nice idea. But I think it'd be just to make sure that she approves. Yeah,
Make a note of it.
that'd be great.
And last time I was near there, the sign for Memorial Park is gone. Is it still not present?
Jeez, I can't remember if
It's down
Yeah.
because it's closed, right? Didn't we?
Is it
Haven't
closed?
we talked? Didn't we talk about how it's down because it's closed?
Yeah,
I think we emailed back and forth about that. I had driven by one night and said there's cones up and gravel everywhere and the sign is gone. And Kristen wrote back and said, yeah, it was damaged during the flood. I don't know about the sign though. I don't know quite why that would, well, unless it's officially closed, but who has the sign?
yeah, it's a good question. We should ask Meredith if they have the sign or if they know who has the sign. I mean, it was closed because of flooding, and that flooding repair work is now complete, but it also needs to be closed from the point of view of the bridge not being safe.
Yeah.
So maybe we should check in with Meredith and Valerie about that. Yeah.
Alex, when you touch base with them, could you have that conversation too? Thanks.
I'll make a note of that as well.
Kristen,
Sorry,
do you
John?
happen to know if they may have decided to consider redesigning the parking area, because it kind of had a half moon, two entrances, and part of our accessibility committee review, I think it was noted that it might be better to have it be a further, let's see, east up the hill, just an in and out there because of the
Line
view
of sight. Yeah.
line of sight, yes.
Yeah,
I
I
just,
an update about that in our next agenda item.
oh, wonderful. Okay.
Okay, so is that it for parks then?
I'll just mention that Eagle Park, the last and final task of the FEMA mitigation work that's being implemented there following the Halloween storm of 2019 is happening now, and that's the railing around the fishing platform is being modified to be removable, and Sergeant Welding is working on that right now, fabricating the replacement sleeves and modifications. So within the next month or so, that'll be done. And I think there is road work happening now along that stretch of River Road.
Yeah.
So that section is closed to public access at this point anyway, so.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. There were so many people had perks updates. That was great. And then should we move to the accessible design then, which is almost like a similar topic, but
Sure.
are we good for that? Okay, great. So let's move on to accessible design for town parks.
Okay, I sent to everybody's email a document which I can share. And these are just 3 concept plans for sorry, I should have had this open. 3 concept plans for accessibility at town parks. Can everybody see this?
Yeah, it's starting. Here we go.
Yep, he's doing it.
There we go. So we had our update meeting this morning with Du Bois King, who's the consultant that the town hired with grant funding to evaluate 3 of our town parks for improved accessibility for persons of variable mobility. And this is let's see, maybe I can zoom in on it a little bit. This is Eagle Park on River Road that we were just talking about. And these are draft only. They are they've been prepared by Du Bois King based on feedback received from the steering committee that's working with them, but also from, and that includes folks like Porter Knight, who had spearheaded some of this work, but also citizens of Bristol that have mobility challenged family members. And then also they were at Pocock Rocks, Du Bois King was, to share information, but also receive feedback from the public. And they've done a survey, and they've done a number of different outreach events to gather information to come up with these concept plans.
And
so-
they, for the record, they met with us too, right?
and they met with the Conservation Commission. Yeah, good point. Was that July, I think? And
June, yeah.
June, maybe. So this is Eagle Park. They're proposing these ideas and they would like feedback from all of us. And I can help. For those of you who do have feedback, just you can email me and I'll forward it to Dan at Dubois and King if that's maybe the easiest. Here's the universal fishing platform we've been talking about. A lot of folks suggested that they would like to see a physical lift that would transport a human body down to the water's edge, and so they're proposing a location for that around about here. I provided some feedback at this morning's meeting that might be a very vulnerable spot in terms of flood damage, and we do see debris and high water at least once a year. So they took that note this morning. But they're talking about some reconfigured parking with asphalt, handicap accessible parking spots right here at the top of the current gravel pathway that leads to the concrete ramp. And then throughout the park, they're suggesting maybe some packed gravel pathway, which is in blue. There's another access point to the river here. These gray squares are like 5x5 concrete pads that would essentially allow folks with assistance to get down to the little beach here and have access to the river. Then there's a network of grass paths that would intersect with this loop asphalt or gravel path. So that's Eagle Park. The next one is Memorial, which we are also just talking about. So here's Route 17 or App Gap. As Jonna was mentioning, instead of the semicircular loop here, they're proposing a single entrance to the parking area off of the state route with, again, some asphalt handicap accessible parking, 2 spots here, and some overlooks or seating areas, viewing areas that would be accessible for a wheelchair or someone that's walking with a cane. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to have an ADA compliance trail segment down to this lower grassed area. So in recent meetings, we've been talking about access to the river from the south end of the park. And this would be along that shared driveway and therefore would need some conversations with the private landowners that live at the end of this shared roadway, shared driveway. But here again, parking and with access to an overlook that would enable someone in a wheelchair to be able to view the river and the falls and hear them and see them. And a few additional parking areas along this driveway and a path loop. This blue would be, in this case, probably a gravel path, maybe asphalt, but more likely gravel path. And finally, concept plan for Sycamore. And here we have already a parking area. They would be looking at maybe improving that somewhat. We talked about barbecue grill area because that was feedback received from a number of members of the public. There would be a loop pretty much at grade that would be a gravel path here, allowing access to either stock cedar ring here. The apples we've been talking about are over here. And then some reinforced grass paths allowing for further exploration into the park. and then maybe a path through the Japanese knotweed down to the river. And here's where they talked about a possible idea of rolling out temporary mats. And I'll show you a picture of those. Can you see did the view change to,
No.
No, we still
Same.
see Sycamore Park.
okay, let me just unshare and reshare.
Okay, we see it now.
The mats they were talking about are like this, and you can Google search Moby mat. They make this is just an idea they put forth this morning, and they like feedback. These are mats that are portable, and you can roll them out, and then they allow for access by a wheelchair or others who are having a little trouble navigating rough terrain to make it to the destination. And so they were proposing that maybe the rec department could have 4 or 5 events throughout a summer where they say, this Sunday we're going to roll out the mats to provide access to the river, and feel free to come and share.
Can I make a comment on that photo?
Of course.
Currently, the very sinuous and narrow trails through the knotweed are not wide enough to accommodate that mat. So there's no, I don't think you could roll it out unless you went through first with a machete or something.
Bush hog or something like that. Yeah. So I think that, it would need further research, and we were acknowledging this morning that we would need the rec department to give us some feedback on, because they would likely be the entity to kind of organize those events if we were going to do something like that. So it needs a little more research. This is what the grass pervious pavement paths look kind of like. They can also be gravel base pervious pavement, where underneath is this kind of interlocking material that provides a little more solid footing for folks that might be traversing with a wheelchair or other apparatus. So I'll stop
And
there.
then,
and
oh no,
take
Kristen,
feedback.
about that impervious, that semi-impervious service.
Yeah.
What do you think about that as like for floodwater, right? Because you're, I mean, that's your
Yeah.
wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, we did talk about that this morning, and that material has been rated for receiving rainfall of 3 inches in depth, but it hasn't been rated for receiving like flowing floodwaters and the shear stresses that would be imparted on that material. So they're going to go back to the manufacturer and ask about more of that information. The other thing that we talked about was just being mindful of where the floodwaters have overtopped before, like for example at Sycamore Park. There's a few key spots where we know when we get flooding, that's where the water flows. And so we just want to avoid those areas in order to preserve the pathways. So these are all just straw polls. These are ideas, concepts, and Du Bois and King would love to have any feedback that we all care to share about, either positive or negative or neutral on what they've proposed.
And you would like us to email you that feedback, is that correct?
Yeah, if you want to email it, I'm happy to kind of collect all that and then forward it on to Dan.
Okay. And then just in terms of this project in general, just to make sure I'm clear, and Roger, of course, coming into this. So this is, these are like concept plans, and we have funding to create the concept. And then the idea would be to take these and then seek other funding to implement these. Is that correct?
Yeah, and actually they're going to be taken a step further than concept plans to
Okay.
like a 30% design plan or a 30% construction plan, so that the town then has specific plans to put out for a request for bids if we decide as a town that we want to move forward with any of these ideas or construction
I
plans.
see. So you could like get, it's more like you could get a quote on like, not just like, I drew a pretty picture, but like, here's a picture with like numbers behind it and engineering.
Correct.
So you can actually get like a real quote then. Oh, so we can save that step. So if we get money, then we can jump right in. Okay, I get that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the yellow that looks like it's like spray painted on, is that mowed grass?
Yeah, that's supposed to be depicting the areas that are presently in a lawn sort of treatment. Yeah. The lights are going out at the town hall, right? And I would just say that also they will be they wanted to suggest that not all of these plans would necessarily need to be implemented at all three parks. I mean, so if you have thoughts about priorities, one park over another, or yes, parking revisions at all three parks, but paths only at one park or something like that, I'm happy to take that kind of feedback as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to think about like what bang for your buck wise, which park would generate the most use from the project that is done. Off the top of my head, it just feels like Sycamore would be that one.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to, I mean, you can't really know this until quotes are being generated, but you know, like what the cost scope is of those different parts or those projects compared to one another, there might be really different.
For sure. And I think as part of this current project, we will get budgetary cost estimates for each of these designs. And so we'll have a better sense for that, you know, like which one's going to be more costly, which one would give us more value for the dollars spent.
Yeah, it seems like the memorial one would be a big thing.
A big thing.
But-
Yeah.
A big thing
But
for less
also-
area to use
yeah.
too.
But it would also bring use to an area that right now we're saying, don't go there.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just stunning. Like it's the prettiest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. It's as far as like those places where someone might want to sit at an overlook and just enjoy the scenery. Memorial is second to none, you know. So maybe that does make sense. It'd be interesting to see how that shakes out with the shared driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like for example, like so if you think about like, okay, let's go out somewhere, right? Going to Eagle, for example, it's a big loop through the grass with knotweed around it. Whereas like if you go to Memorial, it feels like you did something today. Like you saw greatness and beauty, you know, like it feels like more of a tourist attraction or like meaningful that like you could view it, you know, and that viewing it was doing it, you know.
Yeah.
And very different than any other accessible option around town, I would imagine too. Like it's a different forest type, and it's a different, like, just everything in there is very different than most other stretches of the river that we can get at easily.
Good point.
Yeah.
But it's really small.
Yes.
There's not that much of it. Yeah.
But like, you know, but was it Texas Falls? All you really need to do is park your car and then you behold, then you get back in your car again. There's no need to do that loop. The loop only just is a bunch of woods like you can see anywhere in Vermont, right? Like the cool thing is you park, you look, you get back in your car and you go to Ben and Jerry's, right? Like at least that's how our family does it. But it feels like that could be like this though, or it'd be something like worth doing if you weren't, you know, in my experience, you know, like it would be something like our family could do that would be easy for all abilities to go and look and do something together, you know. It seems nice.
The only thing about that is, as compared to Texas Falls, I don't know that there's a view of the falls from any of those spots that you could get at, because the fall, like it twists, and the falls is like in a, you know, it's kind of like in a canyon.
Yeah.
that you've got to be looking back up at from the really low spot on the south side of the river, sorry, the north side of the river, which is really nobody's getting down there. That's steep.
I think
I don't know
the
how you,
accessible overlook deck though, right?
Yeah.
With the blue asphalt path, I think that gets at that area.
but you're kind of looking down, like the falls
Uh-huh.
itself is pretty far under the actual bank,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
You'd have to be below it looking up at. It's still a beautiful river
That's
though.
true.
It's without the falls, but it's a little, you know, it's not quite like beholding the waterfall itself.
That's true. That's very true.
Yep.
Well, these are all really cool. I really am like impressed. They've done such a lot of work. They've talked to a big swath of the community, you know.
Mhm.
And yeah, and for me, it just always comes back to, you know, maintenance and flood damage. You know, that's just, I always just my brain, that's where I go as for the Conservation Commission, like things that we have to worry about, you know. But
Mhm.
these are really cool. They've done a lot of good work.
And they will be hopefully getting a spot at the Harvest Festival. So they'll be taking in more feedback from the community there. And they may also show up at the transfer station on a Saturday some morning, so you might see them there. So they'll continue to take in a little more feedback in the next weeks.
Cool. Well, thank you so much too for the time you spent working with them.
Yeah.
I think John as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah, well, Kristen did a fabulous overview of all three of the parks. Wonderful job, Kristen.
Does anyone have other comments, or should we hold comments and email those to Kristen? Is that correct? Comments go to Kristen? Okay.
Whichever you'd like.
Sounds good. Okay, I think it'd be nice to talk about our next item, which is fall agenda planning. I just want to make sure we were all on the same page of like fall ideas. So, we just talked about how October would like to talk about, the Middlebury, wildlife stuff. I also know that we want to invite David Bryn to talk about Seth Hill, right? Anyone else have things they would like to do or talk about in terms of fall planning, just so I can get, you know, because if I know who to invite, then I can start getting like, oh, can you do this week? Can you do this one? You know, so we thought maybe Andrew LaRoe, although maybe he's not in that position anymore. I just don't know enough about the Addison County Regional Planning Commission. Does anyone know about that wants to jump in on the thought?
I could reach out to Andrew and ask if he would, whether it would make sense for him to come and speak with us.
Or
And-
if he knows who would make sense, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to reach out and do a little research.
Yeah. That sounds great. And then we can pair that with the October one in the October Middlebury wildlife discussion, or save it for November as like, okay, we talked together, now we'll talk to them. Like either way works, I think. And then maybe once I know when they could come, I could also see what David Bryn's availability is, talk about Seth Hill between like October, November, and December meetings.
Can you
Does that
remind
work?
us what the Seth Hill project
Seth-
is?
Yeah, Seth Hill is a property that Bristol owns in Lincoln. And it used to be somehow connected to how we got our water supply, and so Bristol bought it. It's in Lincoln, and it's like fairly well forgotten. Except that David Bryn's been working out there, and he got a grant to do something with flood and erosion something, and so we wanted to see what that was all about. Any
Okay.
other details anyone has? The word something thrown in less times.
And the reason that David Bryn is involved is because as in his role in Vermont Family Forests, they manage that forest for the town. And so he's traditionally been writing the management plan for that piece of property. And as Carolyn mentioned, they got funding to do water bars along some of the logging roads that would help to reduce runoff and improve water quality. And that was just implemented in the last month or so, as far as I understand. So I think he'll have some good, fresh information to share with us when he comes
Right.
to visit.
And I think we had hoped to invite him when he got the funding in spring, but then he was busy and we were busy, and then summer gets so nutty, and we said, oh, let's talk in fall. So we just want to close that loop and talk to him this fall. And then anyone else we want to talk to? Any other projects brewing? Do we want to talk to like John Swepson again? Anything we want to talk about trees? He's the tree ward. We haven't talked to him in a while. Do you want to bring Meredith in again? Anyone have any ideas? Just if you have an idea for someone that might be useful to have a conversation with, let me know so we can facilitate those visitors. I try to organize so we have like a visitor or a main event for the first half hour, 45 minutes of each meeting.
Where did our old frisbee playing thing go? Is that still frisbee golf? Is that still on the?
I don't know.
What happened to that?
They were gonna come talk to us again, and then the rec club meeting got moved to the same Thursday as our meeting. So now it's much harder for the rec department to come to this meeting. And that was the last I heard about that. Was that they said they couldn't come when they planned, but would try to pop over and talk about it. And then we haven't heard from them since. But last we heard was at the May meeting, I think. And they said they get back to us, and they haven't.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll let us know if there's any updates or any ideas.
Has there been any talk about that in the discussions about the accessible park design stuff at all?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't remember any.
Okay. Just feel like, is there someone from the rec department liaising with that group?
Occasionally Meredith did accompany us on site visits and things of that nature.
Okay, so she's aware of the project and.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess we'll just sort of see if that comes back. Well, anyhow, if anyone thinks of anything, let me know if we want to invite someone. But for now, I think that's a good set for this fall then to do. We'll read the deliverables. We'll have a big talk amongst ourselves. We'll see if there's a Aspen County Regional Planning Commission representative that wants to talk to us about some of these ideas. We'll see about the Seth Hill piece. And then maybe we should think about once we have our own plan in place, maybe we should think about talking to the Planning Commission about what we've been doing. They had wanted the documents right after the talk the students gave, and then we didn't get them until just today. So we might want to send those out to the Planning Commission, see what they think about them too, or visit with them, or I don't know. I'll start by just sending them the documents. Or maybe I should wait till after our October meeting. Maybe I'll wait.
Oh, because we're going to discuss it more at October.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to wait then.
Yeah, it's been this long. Might as well just wait, and then we can talk about our next plan in October. That makes sense. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's really helpful. Just so I know like what we're all thinking, so I can organize them. I can organize the meetings to reflect our interests. So that's good. Thank you. Okay, bookkeeping. We are missing a lot of minutes. I don't know where the minutes are or where they've gone, and no one's to blame. I just think we should find them and get Sharon to put them online. So I don't know.
Yeah, I looked at my files. I have May, June, and July. And I haven't sent July because we didn't approve them until just now.
Sure.
But I sent May and June, and they're not on the town website, so I'll send them again. I do not have.
Are we missing any from the months that I was doing it?
Yep, February, March, April, May.
Oh, okay.
February, March, April. I have May, June, July.
Okay, well, I'll send them again too.
Yeah, so if you could just send those to the.
Sounds like they're really busy there, so.
It does, I know. I just want to make sure we're like in compliance with our open meeting laws. So let's just make sure if you could resend those to the clerk email address and just say like, oops, I noticed these were missing. Like, can you please post them?
Yep.
So Zaylee, according to Carolyn's list, we're missing February, March, April.
Okay.
So if you could send those, and then I have
It's across 2 fiscal years.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tricky to find them, but yeah, I see the last one that was posted for minutes was, all the videos are posted, all the agendas are posted, and the minutes are perfect until February 8th, 24, and then they have not been posted since then.
Yeah.
Now, I know
I
we've
think we
been
just
sending them.
need to
but I
resend
just
them.
need to, yeah, resend them.
Okay,
We'll send
Before
them.
it gets too late and we've completely lost them, we forget about them.
Mhm.
That'd be great. Okay,
and we
cool, thank
just
you.
who do we send them to? Just
I
to-
think it's the
It's
clerk, I
clerk.
think.
Yeah.
Email account.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. And then we'll just hope that that goes through this time, and if not, I'll call or we'll figure something out. Awesome, thank you. Did anyone go to the ABCC virtual annual summit? It was like during the workday, so it was tricky. I didn't go, no one went, okay. Well, I guess we can, the debrief was quick, or maybe that's tabled, I don't know.
yeah, I'm just gonna remove it from the agenda.
Just remove it, yeah, I just don't worry about that. Okay, and then that brings us to the end, and we don't have any additional business, so that's it. So we have any events planned? The only event would be, I think, Helen, you were gonna send an email around to, prune the sycamore.
Yep.
And then we've all agreed to do the homework of reading through those documents. But that's not like an event, that's more like a reminder.
Yeah.
Great. And then our next meeting will be the second Thursday of the month, as always, will be October 10th from 6 to 7:30. Hopefully fewer people are sick, since a lot of people are sick on the commission right now. And we'll do it Zoom with a Holly Hall with a Zoom option, like we like to do. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, there's a motion to adjourn. Is
Second.
there a second?
Second motion.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Hi.
The motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.